trying to. Is it? I have it on. I haven't done anything.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that on? No. I don't want it closer.
I know.
Okay, is that good enough? If I start, breathing into it, I'm moving it.
Everyone here?
Yeah, that's the key thing. Okay. So let's try to I don't know what. Let's try to settle our minds into this moment that we're sitting here, or we're trying to sit here. And really try to bring your mind from whatever you were doing, all the busyness of getting here, the busyness of finding a seat, the busyness of everything, to what's happening right this moment. As being aware of the body sitting, the pressure of the chair, the cushion against the body. Your breath going in and out. Because even if you're not aware of it, if it's not going in and out, we've got a bigger problem. And bring your awareness to any parts of your body that are feeling tense, or if you realize that you've got your shoulders up near your ears, or I just put all my stress into my shoulders. So. But it's amazing how if you just bring your attention to that area and take a breath, that will naturally relax, at least for a part of a second. And take a moment to remember why you came. We have busy lives, but you chose to spend part of it here today. And using that reason, generate a positive intention to use your time well. And expand your area of concern from just benefiting your own mind to benefit those around you. But expand it out, imagining that it might benefit those in your community, those in your country, those in the world, and wherever else they might be. So let's recite the 4 measurables. So that's on page 34 of the text. It's also on the screen, if that's easier. So just take a moment to think about how you want to be happy, and you want your loved ones to be happy. And then we just want to make it really expansive. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from happiness that is free from suffering. We're waiting for the screen. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then page 98 for the refuge bodhicitta prayer. So if you're comfortable reciting this. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thanks, Nana. Oh. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Sue. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Vicki. Hi, Christina. Hi, Esther.
Welcome back, Kendra. Welcome back. It's so good to see you.
Well, it's good to be here.
Yes, I second that.
India.
Yes,
You survived.
you made it.
I made it. I didn't get killed in a car wreck. I was very happy about that.
Do you feel
So-
better? Do you feel better, Tendrin, after having gone through it now? You face the fears and
Yeah, I
live
mean, it's
to
just
tell about it.
is, right? No, I'm not. Yeah, I live to tell about it. That's so India. I was very fortunate in that I had to face my fear as soon as I arrived in India. So I mean, it was bad enough, the 18 hours plus all the layovers it takes to get there. Which is, oh, well, not to mention the tooth I had to have pulled the day before I left.
Oh, no.
Which is my teeth. That's so typical, it's not even funny. So that didn't bother me. So, but I was really afraid of, being on the roads in India. Every time I hear stories about India, there's always some story about the insanity of being in a vehicle in India. So I was really scared of that, stupidly scared of that. I mean, I admit it, it's not rational. It was just, so I was riding in a car with two of my friends who were lay people and the driver. And so I was in the front seat because that's what they do with monks and nuns. So that means I had a perfect view of the traffic. And the fact that apparently things like lane markings are suggestions, not rules. In fact, there are no rules. They're just suggestions of any kind. And that intersections, you can't even tell you're actually at an intersection. I mean, this is driving to a small village, away from a big city. It's like you kind of pass through these things and you kind of go, is that an intersection? Because you kind of see cars coming from all four directions suddenly, and there might be a stoplight, which does not seem to have any relevance to when people go anywhere. So, thought, okay, but as we're driving, it was a 5-hour drive. So as we're driving, I've realized as I'm looking that they really cooperate. I mean, they beep their horn to say hello. They beep their horn to say, I'm behind you, or beep their horn to say, I'm on the side of you, all that kind of thing. And they move up to be to be like next. And they're not going very fast. You think it feels like they're going very fast because they're cars and they're people and they're, what do you call those things? Motorcycles and motorbikes and, that have 4 passengers, I mean, it's, there's just a lot of activity. But if someone doesn't move, if a car doesn't move, or if a pedestrian doesn't move, or a motorcycle doesn't move out of the way, they slow down. I mean, and everybody does that. The pedestrians get out of the way, the motorcycles get out of the way. It's like this really amazing little movement of a river, where the water doesn't get in each other's way. It just, makes room. And that's what it was like. It was like astounding to me because I could never imagine that happening here. It was just, I was really totally relaxed about it. It's like, oh, I mean, it's not that I can't get killed, but we can all get killed by a car. I mean, that's not a big deal, but it was not insane.
Were there cows?
Oh yeah, there are cows, there's everything, but it was so graceful how it just floated. So if you've only ridden in the back seat of a car in India, I recommend the front seat because you don't see that in the back. And in the back, you're just being tossed around because they go up and stop and go sideways and stop. And it's very, energetic. But it really, it was really fascinating to me. It was a wonderful experience to see that. Because what does that take to be able to do that? Patience, mindfulness. The driver said you have to be aware 360 degrees around you. They're, what do you call those things? Side view mirrors are like really close because they pass they pass things within inches, So, you really have to know exactly where you are so you can see where everybody else, and there are big signs on the backs of trucks that say, please honk. So they know where you are. So it's just a whole different way of getting around. So, but it's a trip to see, because, even, I mean, we were on a highway, you could call it that, and there were still all these little, I don't know what you call them, like restaurant pop-ups all along the way. People are doing their grocery shopping. You don't know where they're coming from. It's just like there are lots of people, and we're passing fields, but it was fascinating. So that was cool. Very cool. That's all I'm going to say about India at this very precise moment. I may go back in March, just as there's a conference of non-Himalayan Western nuns run by, or being organized by Tenzin Palmo, who's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. So I'm going to try to go to that. So so that was cool. And it's such a, I did hear that the bus drivers are a bit crazy because they have right of way. So they don't have to be as attentive. So they can fix that. But I didn't have to get on a bus. I'll have to get on the bus next time. But no, I know. That's right. But it was such a good teaching on if you don't push, if you don't become impatient, if you don't get angry, if you don't, all those things, how content you can stay even amidst this insanity called a road. I mean, it was really interesting to me that it was just this classic teaching on how, love and compassion, patience, generosity are the ways in which happiness arises. It's not getting what you want. Because these drivers were not getting what they want, They were just still moving. Everybody wanted to move. And when there was some kind of traffic jam, like one woman in Dharamsala, Westerner, was driving in this little, hit an intersection, a road crossing, wasn't a big deal. It was just two roads, right? But it was also hilly. It's mountainous in Dharamsala. And so as she's going to cross this road, she just panics and she cannot drive it. She's just sitting there and the car's not moving. And this went on for quite a while. And so what happens? the drivers of all the cars around her stopped, got out of the cars, and helped her drive the car. And it happened twice. So she gets going, and then she connects again, and they do it again. No. So if you are in India and you think, why are they late? Well, because this is how they live. They don't live by a calendar. They live according to, the circumstances. So that was very cool.
Did you get a special good treatment because you're dressed as a nun?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. No. I got special good treatment from the people I was with, from the Westerners who are studying Buddhism. I got special treatment. The monks treated us like royalty. We went to the monastery in the south where all my teachers had been trained. And then 3 of them traveled with us to Dharamsala and took care of us, so that they would walk in front of the group and behind the group to make sure none of us got run over by a car, and to make sure that we weren't, harassed and all that kind of stuff. But no, I wouldn't say that. No, I definitely would say no to that. But I'm not a layperson walking around, so I don't know what they experienced, so. Anyway, I did discover that walking in India is harder than driving. Because all those same things still apply. And if you're not mindful, you're getting in everybody's way. Nobody's going to run over you, but you're getting in everybody's way. And so, that's kind of good look. So anyway, but it was like this small example of how to act with compassion, love, and generosity, patience, all those things. And skill. You have to be mindful. It takes mindfulness. Our hotel was on a street that wasn't really wide enough for a car. That didn't mean they didn't drive up it. It just meant it really wasn't wide enough. We had to close the mirrors on the side. We had, in order to not damage the car. So that was hilarious. But it beat walking up it. Because that's what mostly we did, except when we had our luggage. So, okay. Questions about India? Because I really can't think of a thing to say. It'll come up again, but I can't think of a thing to say, except it's kind of cool. Yes.
Were you able to see His Holiness?
Well, His Holiness was there. He gave a teaching. I did not have an audience with him. We were first in line, guaranteed an audience. His Holiness was not well. So his doctor said, nope, you can't meet it with anybody. So welcome to my teacher karma. So, but he got better. So. It's always lovely to be in His Holiness's presence. There's just energy. And of course, Dharamsala, which is where he lives, is in northern India. And all the, you see all these signs that support the teachings we receive. So it's kind of just cool to see that, They don't cut down trees anymore in Dharamsala, so things just are built around them. The roads, little steps, and then there's a tree. So it's kind of cool. And there's signs about protecting all life. So while I was there, I saw the Dharma Animal Rescue Group who go around and they give rabies vaccinations and other things for all the street dogs. There's something like, I don't know. There are lots, 32,000. I was just reading the research this morning. I forgot. Anyway. So bodhicitta, what are we talking about? Bodhisattvas, the path of a bodhisattva. What is a bodhisattva? Anybody know what that even means?
Heart.
Yep.
Person foregoes samsara, how other sages believe their suffering and
No, not really. A Buddha is a bodhisattva, but bodhisattvas, they're not considered Buddhas. Okay. They're on the path. So bodhisattvas have a very specific definition. There's a mark of a bodhisattva. What's that mark? A measure of a bodhisattva.
Compassion, loving kindness,
That's the root of it, but that's not it.
enlightenment. No.
So, I mean, the definition, I don't know, sorry, the mark eludes me, but a
The definition,
Bodhisattva is a person who wishes to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, liberating them. Sorry.
so it's two aspirations. It's the wish to become enlightened. That's, that's good for you, for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that's there are two aspirations, and it's also translated as the awakening mind. It is, but it also means 24/7. That they don't have to, it's spontaneous and effortless. They don't have to think about it. It is, they have trained their minds so completely, it becomes a main mind. Everything in the bodhisattva's mental activity is under the influence of this mind of wanting to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so they're all their actions are motivated by this. So they don't do things that aren't going to get them to enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. So it's kind of a very advanced path.
How do they know that they're not, what they're doing isn't for the benefit of all beings?
They study, they meditate, they have realizations, they slowly develop wisdom. Because there are two wings to the bird's wings to enlightenment. God, I really can mess up whatever those are called. What is that called? I don't know. Analogy, metaphor. Anyway, method and wisdom. Method is the compassion side. It's our skillful means. That's what we do. And so we have to develop our wisdom to do all our deeds perfectly. Only a Buddha can do that, So in the meantime, we do the best we can. So bodhisattvas can make mistakes. No question about it. Because they may not have fully developed wisdom, but they don't make the mistake of not doing something that they think will benefit, that will help them get to enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's their motivation. So what does that mean when you're motivated like that? What is that the consequence karmically for the advanced students who can't come up with a definition of other than Anthony?
So repeat the question.
Okay, what's the consequences karmically of a mind that's always motivated in that way as a bodhisattva?
Well, if you reach enlightenment faster karmically,
Maybe. If you keep having realizations and blah, 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 and if you get on the path of preparation, da, 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 da. But
I suppose if that's your frame of mind,
it's not just your frame of mind.
your actions are always going to be positive because
Right.
it's your motivation, and you'll create the causes
Yep.
for more positive development.
That's right. Mind is the main thing. That's what we're trying to change. Our actions are secondary to this mind that's motivating you. So even if you make a mistake, you're not going to experience suffering in the future because it was a mistake, because your intention was perfect, according to the Buddha. So this is something to strive for. But as you can imagine, it's not easy to do, but fortunately, research even now supports that we can train ourselves in compassion. So earlier somebody said compassion. Well, our compassion, our pitiful little compassion that arises occasionally when we see suffering, or when, our loved ones are hurt, or when we're hurt, that wish that they be free of that suffering arises, that's the basis for it. We can cultivate compassion Research shows we can change our brain by meditating on compassion. We can make more active parts of the brain that are responsible for caring for others, things of that nature. They can show it on the, fMRI or all these fancy devices. So that's good news. So we have the basis. We're not starting from scratch. And it's teachable, it's trainable. And the way to train your mind in it is to meditate on it. Oh, drat, I knew there was a catch. Meditating on it doesn't mean sitting on a cushion and in total boredom. It can be sitting quietly. It can be as you're walking around, seeing other people. They say a bodhisattva, as soon as they see a sentient being, they think, oh, I need to become enlightened in order to liberate that suffering sentient being. It's just ever present in their thinking. And so that's so what is this training against? What do we normally think about most of the time?
What are they doing for me?
Yeah, to be precise, that's exactly right. What's in it for me? And will this person help me or not help me? And, and if they're in neither category, we tend to, they're just strangers and they stay strangers and we don't think about them at all. So this is countering that. We have to, learn to replace our habit of always thinking about me, and replace it with always thinking about you. What can I do for you? How can I benefit you? Being mindful of you. Being mindful of what skills I need to develop in order to be able to do that. Knowing that just because your girlfriend calls you up and wants to go out doesn't mean that it isn't better to stay home and read a Dharma book. That we have to develop these skills in order to be really a good friend to that person who invited us out. So it's just, and to put the caveat in there, that doesn't mean you can't always, you can never say yes. It just means that sometimes, we can be in really kind of involved in something and we're doing a good job of kind of like, oh, I'm really getting a lot out of this text, or I'm really whatever it is. And then get, pulled away immediately by some email or something that just kind of like distracts us. And in those moments, we want to try to be able to recognize, better to go back to what I was doing. Just like you do at work when somebody's paying you to stay focused. In fact, what do? We often get annoyed with people who interrupt us at work. Like, I didn't get my work done. So, okay. So bodhicitta, so that's a very specific thing. A lot of people use compassion and bodhicitta interchangeably, but that's because I feel like I can hear myself. So that's, there I go, breathing into it. Okay, that's because compassion is the basis for which bodhicitta can arise. Because they're not the same thing. Because bodhicitta includes this desire to become enlightened, this aspiration to become enlightened, because that's the only way to perfectly help others. So what you had said earlier about the bodhisattvas delay enlightenment in order, they stay in samsara in order to benefit others. Sometimes we see verses that say that, imply that, but really they know, bodhisattvas know that enlightenment's the best way to be able to benefit others. So they don't delay that. In some traditions, there's the belief that when you get fully enlightened, you cease to exist. That's not the teaching in the Mahayana tradition. So you can just come back and forth and help. So what do we think is the benefit of cherishing ourselves, of thinking me and mine? It's not just me, it's, my children, my partner. What do we think the advantage of that is? What purpose does it serve?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is if you're 100%, you can give 100% to others. So it is still valuable to take care of yourself and those around you so that you can give to others.
And so that's an important point. Self-care matters. We must have self-care. We have limits. We're not Buddhas yet. We're not Bodhisattvas yet. We have limits. So it's important to recognize those limits, be honest with ourselves about those limits, stretch those limits when we have more energy, and learn from when we've overstretched and learn when we underdo, when we realize, oh yeah, probably could have gone and helped with that, but I just didn't, So it's kind of like that, but self-care is very important. So cherishing others does not mean abandoning self-care. So that's important to remember. So what other advantages are there to thinking me?
We think it's going to make us happy and safe.
Yeah. And we really do think that getting what we want or what we perceive as we need, all those things is what's going to make us happy, safe, it'll protect us. And so the Buddha's proposing what?
But that's not the case.
That's not true. Yeah. That's not how you become happy. It may be how you get sensory pleasures, but it's not, it has no relationship to actual contentment and happiness. What does it have a relationship with instead?
Self-cherish.
Yeah. So what?
Greed.
Greed. What else comes from greed? Or what presupposes greed? I don't know, that's not the right English language at all, but anyway.
Fear of not having.
That fear of not having. And when you want something, what is it? Craving. So we have this craving, which sounds good when you're talking about, chocolate mousse, is actually a fear. It's a fear of not having it or not having it again. And what do? We keep clinging to it. We grasp after it. We need more. We hoard it. We do all sorts of things to try to guarantee that we do not have to be separated from what we like. All of those are suffering states of mind. We think getting what we want ends that, but it's not true. It's that little reminder. Ooh, has anybody ever been addicted to cigarettes or something similar? Do you remember what it was like? Like you just made sure you never had less than a pack at home that you hadn't opened, or in my case, it was a carton, you just always made sure you were never going to be without it. Because of course, I managed to live through the era when you could smoke everywhere. So, you never had to go, learn how long you could go before you wanted to kill everybody in your office if you couldn't get out and have a cigarette. So, this is, to me, if you were addicted to something or have been in the past, that is your clearest example of why it's suffering, why craving is suffering, while getting what you want doesn't fix it. It just increases the craving. And it's not, it doesn't have to be something like nicotine or heroin or whatever, it's just that whatever we identified as something that makes us happy or that we can't live without. I mean, I know people who have stockpiles of chocolate in their house, because, they feel better knowing that they have it. Nothing wrong with that in the scheme of things. It's just not helping your mind. So according to the Buddha, cherishing ourselves or self-centeredness is a source of all our suffering. And cherishing others is a source of all our happiness. So that takes a lot of meditation. We have to think about it. We need to analyze that. We need to check up with our experience. We can even these days look at research that's, being done on it and what, areas of the brain light up when this and that happens, Buddhism does not equate the mind with the brain. The brain is a terrific, physical support for the mind, unlike a mosquito's brain. The human brain is really a good one. We want to use it well while we have it, but it's not the same thing. Don't want to. So even though I read all the research, we say it's the mind that's changing the brain, not the brain that's changing the mind. Although there's brain damage, obviously that also, but it doesn't affect the mind. It just affects their ability to find the mind. So can I cram everything into a paragraph? Okay.
I heard a wise man once said, sometimes the wanting is more pleasurable than the having.
Yeah, and it's not pleasurable, is it? That's the irony, like, yes, it's true. We sometimes our anticipation of something brings us more, delight, you could say, and then the real thing, but none of that is actually pleasure, is it?
Momentary pleasure.
What's more of an idea of pleasure? It's not even pleasure.
Well, when you're eating that chocolate cake.
Oh, yeah. That's sensory pleasure. Absolutely. That's sensory pleasure. So when we daydream about, there's chocolate mousse in my refrigerator at home, and boy, there isn't any, and I'm so sorry about that mistake. But, it's, we can look forward to it. Ooh, I can't wait till I get home. Ooh, it's so delightful. What does that do in the meantime? While you're thinking about it, what are you not doing? You're not living your life. You're daydreaming about a future moment in your life. That's a poor substitute. We can daydream all we want. That's not going to make you fulfilled at the end of your life. You're not going to sit there and think, oh, I did such a good job daydreaming my life away.
Tendrin, can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
So this was in reference to what you talked about, the brain and the mind being different. So I don't know if you know the answer to this or not. My mother had Alzheimer's disease when she was alive. She was a very smart woman, but she ended up having Alzheimer's disease. So I don't know if you know this or not, but when you pass on into whatever you pass on to your, whatever you call that, before your next incarnation, does the Mahayana believe that your mind is then separate and clear?
Yep.
That your computer went awry, but your mind is a whole other kettle of fish?
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's correct. That, like, one of the examples I always use is my father also had Alzheimer's, and towards the end, he was not a reliable source of information, should we put it that way, and he wouldn't remember things at all, and you might not recognize me, or that kind of thing. But and then you walk in one day and he'd know exactly who you were, and he could talk about his job as if he could function at it, blah, 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 blah. Because the mind isn't what's damaged in Alzheimer's. It's the brain that's damaged. So the brain can't retrieve information, doesn't know where it's stored, doesn't have blah, 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 blah. But the mind isn't the problem. So with the time of death, your consciousness, a very, very subtle form of consciousness, goes to the next body. So that, and depending on what physical support you have for that mind, if you go from this body to a mosquito, you're not going to do much in the next life, but fortunately it's short. So, but it's just, when dies a mosquito, your mind will go to the next body. And if it's a human again, it's not like, oh, now I have to relearn everything from all those years spent, or how many days of being a mosquito. But no, it's just your mind is the same mind you've had since beginningless time. What that means is it's the same continuum of mind. It's your mind, it's your continuum of mind, which is a series of what? Moments of mind. It's not some concrete thing that's your mind. It's your capacity for mental events. We've always had it, always will have it. Consciousness never ceases, according to Buddhism. We keep changing bodies according to our karma. When you become enlightened, that no longer has to happen. In fact, before you become enlightened, when you're liberated from cyclic existence, you're no longer under the control of your karma and your delusions. If you choose to, a body, you can choose a body, blah, 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 but you're no longer out of control. Because that's what samsara means. It means rebirth, again and again and again, that's not in your control. Hi, Brian. Okay. Any other questions about that aspect of it? Yeah.
The Bodhisattva has not fully realized emptiness.
Correct. An Arya Bodhisattva has.
Okay.
So let's make that distinction. When you first become a Bodhisattva, when you first have that spontaneous, effortless mind of wanting to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, you become a Bodhisattva, you enter the Mahayana path. We're not on a path until we've done that. Okay, path just means it's a mind. You're on a level of mind where you're headed towards enlightenment. So then you have to accumulate lots of merit and wisdom during that first phase. When you achieve a certain level, like when you achieve the ability to have calm abiding, then you enter the path of preparation, where you're preparing your mind to have a realization of how things actually exist. When you achieve that, you enter the path of seeing. When you achieve that, of course, what do you have to do? The path of meditation. Path of seeing is like one ground. Oh, I can see reality as it is. But the path of meditation's the rest of it until you hit the path of no more learning. So, which is a Buddha. So at the path of seeing, you're an Arya Bodhisattva. When you're liberated from samsara, which takes 7 grounds or 8 grounds, you are an arhat. But generally, we don't use that term in the Mahayana. You're an Arya Bodhisattva until you become enlightened. Yep.
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember a teaching where until you reach Arya Bodhisattva, until you reach release from samsara, you can slide back, correct? No?
When you're accumulating merit and wisdom, and I think it's the 3rd level of that, the middling level, you can't slide back. You can on the first period, the 2nd period, but so before you're on the path of preparation, you can't slide back. When you're on the path of preparation, you reach the 3rd level, forbearance, the patience level, you'll never fall back. You'll reach enlightenment.
We just got to get to that 3rd level.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. People say, oh, I couldn't be a bodhisattva. You read all these descriptions of what a bodhisattva does. It's easy. When you've got the mind of bodhicitta, you're not thinking about it anymore. You just do it. It's a piece of cake. Just like when you have a child, that child is your main thing. You're going to take care of that child. You're going to, make sure it's okay until maybe they're a teenager, and then things might get a little sloppy. But, it's just, but, you are there. Well, a bodhicitta is like that about every single sentient being. They are on it. And they don't have to make any effort. to have their mind in the right place. Their mind is in the right place. This, before you get there, before you're on a path, this is the hard part. This is challenging because we don't have that skill yet. And developing that skill takes time and effort, and teachings. Kind of have to learn what you're doing, So, it's really, so when you read about bodhisattvas, you read about the vows of a bodhisattva, and you read blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And you think, I can't do that. Yes, you will be able to do it. There's no danger of that, there's just no danger of it. It's now getting to the point where you have that effortless, spontaneous wish to free all beings from samsara, by becoming enlightened. That's the hard work. Because once you have that, it's pretty easy after that. It doesn't mean you're not going to work hard, but you won't care because you're not thinking about yourself ever. Ever. All you're thinking about is how can I help this being, this being, this being? How can I become enlightened? That's all you're thinking about. You can never come up. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? Yep. Elaine, go ahead.
It's me again. It's me again. If you help somebody, this is so Scorpio-like of me. If you help somebody, even if you don't like them, okay, but you make it an effort of your will. I don't like you, but I'm going to help you because I want to be whatever, the Bodhisattva. Does that count?
It matters what you're thinking. Okay. So we want to help others even though we don't have bodhicitta. That's how you get there.
Okay.
Because that is meritorious. Okay. But we want to keep working on our attitude about it so that we don't, in spite of the fact I can't stand you, I'm going to help you. First of all, you try not to think that way, but if it comes up, and you're just, I can't believe this person asked for my help, you want to try to set your motivation that I want to become enlightened and I need this being in order to become enlightened. So they are the most precious being around me in this moment because they need my help. And that's how you become a bodhisattva. So you want to, not focus on your petty likes or dislikes. That's just our samsaric mind. Who cares if you like them or not? It's not relevant. That's karma. And someone you don't like ask you for help probably means they're either a bodhisattva or you're bad karma. So it's just the way it works. And of course, if you're like His Holiness, who sees everyone as a friend, you never had that issue. But we have to develop that mind. And we develop it by having those thoughts like, I can't stand this person, and then countering it. The key is not having the thought. The key is countering that thought, opposing that thought, addressing it as soon as it comes up. That makes sense? Good question, Elaine. Yes.
And when you want to help, but the person don't want to.
Then maybe, you don't help. Until we're Buddhas, we don't know if what we're doing is exactly the right thing for this person or that person. If you have a responsibility for someone, a child or someone who's ill or, who has Alzheimer's or whatever, then you may have to do things that they're not expressly asking for, but in general, we shouldn't think that just because we think we know we could help, that we're right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's if they're under your purview, your own children, but if they're adults, anybody had that experience? It's like, okay, it's a whole different ball game, right? But so it's but it can even be a child who's running across the street and a car's coming, and that's not your child, but because we're interdependent, you don't say, hey, your kid's in the street. You just go get the kid out of the street. it's, so it just depends on the circumstances, and it's very tricky. But if someone does not want your help, they're an adult, who are you? Now, if they're not in their right mind, you can have, if you're given that authority, that gives you a different, so it depends. It's not black and white. It just depends. But we have to know, we have to keep checking, what is my motivation? Is my motivation that I think I'm right and I'm going to prove it to them by getting them to do it my way, or, whatever. I mean, we have to really look. Are we just tired of having to deal with this, so we want to fix it? How many times have you taken something out of someone's hand because you can do it 2 seconds, and they're having trouble with it? But have they asked you for help? No, you just, I just did that with I was with my stepmom. She's 95 and she's, she's in great shape, but she doesn't think as fast or even as accurately as she wanted. She can't see. She has macular degeneration, so she really can't see, And so there were times when I just say, oh, let me, blah, blah, blah. What did that do?
Makes her feel less.
Yeah, it makes her feel less. And I think, like, she lives alone. I'm coming in for 2 weeks. Oh, can I just take care of her for 2 weeks? It's ridiculous. It's my impatience wanting to do that. And I can say all sorts of nice words like, oh, I hate watching her suffer with trying to, get over yourself. I mean, it's just, now there are situations that are much different than that we find ourselves caught up in, where there's serious factors involved. And so that's why it just depends, and you're going to have to develop your wisdom to be able to discern when it's appropriate, yeah.
To get back to what Elaine said about
Not liking the person.
Not like it, thank you. Not liking the person. And that also can be a part of helping. It doesn't have to be something interior or physical, but by maybe thinking, well, they're more than that part that I don't like about them.
Yes. So you can use it as a practice. So being able to think, oh, this person that I don't like, do I know the whole person? Is it true that this person isn't likable? Do they have no friends at all? Do they have, we have to counter all the different ways we're thinking that we are right. That this person's not likable. So it's an opportunity for many different ways in which, we can work on our own mind and change our mind. Because if you're working towards trying to see everybody as a friend and everybody as your path to enlightenment, it's this is the kind of work it takes. Is that all the times we have these, selfish, me thoughts, we want to counter them. And that's what comes up when we don't like someone. That is this decision we make in our mind that makes it as if this person couldn't be liked by anyone, which makes it kind of important, right? When in fact, all it is that, your preference isn't there. So you don't like them because you don't like not getting what you want. And that's all about you, not about them at all. So it's really an opportunity to just, take it as far as you can. And then, if in the moment you can't spend 20 minutes going through this process in your mind, but it's a great thing to bring back to a quiet time when you can use it as a jumping off spot for analytical meditation about preference. All this takes time, and most of us do too much. So that's why I said, sometimes you have to make the decision, I'm not going to go out to dinner because I really want to work on this. but sometimes you need a treat. They have the power of relinquishment. It's my favorite part of the Lam. So Lam is the graduated path to enlightenment. And it speaks to the power of relinquishment, that we need rest. So, I never forget that. I forget joyous effort all the time. Just saying. Yeah. Anyway, but what's great is that the better you get at these things, where you actually go, oh, I could be thinking about, that my preference could be, it just has no validity beyond, my little samsaric mind. Yes, Elaine.
It's me again.
Jump in.
For the 10 millionth time. A question about the Mahayana tradition. Do they believe at all in the that you're okay? Full disclosure, I took what's that called? It's blown out of my mind. But where they believe that you're born under a certain sign of the zodiac for your soul's correct.
Oh yeah, nope.
Is that
no? It isn't Tibetans also have astrology, and like you can get the Liberation Prison Project calendar, and it will tell you good days or bad days to do medical treatments, bad days to start a trip, things like that. So they do have, a belief in that all, because we're interconnected with everything. So that, but it's not the same as what I know as astrology, and I know nothing about it. So it may have more things in common, but I don't know anything about it. We have to ask some, the Liberation Prison Projects, the calendar dates are all checked by some special person that figures this out. I don't know. But so you see the calendar is different. So when we do pujas,
Lunar.
Yeah, but it's a lunar calendar, but it's more than that. But because it's just different. But when we do puja, like Medicine Buddha puja, it has a date. There are a couple of dates in the month that are considered more powerful, not in our month, but in the Tibetan month. So that's when we do them. How was Yancy Rinpoche? I agree. How y'all feeling about Medicine Buddha?
Good.
Yes.
Yes.
Power.
Yes.
We got to power. This is good. So great. So I look forward to seeing you at the next Medicine Buddha.
Yes, Rinpoche did say that there's a lot of power in group
Absolutely.
practice, and he encouraged everyone who was there to participate in group practice.
So, when you have the opportunity, this is one of those things. Go out to dinner and do Medicine Buddha puja. Come to puja. So because like I am. Come on. There you go. I was reading something Lama Yeshe said in the 3 books called one, The Enlightened Experience 1, 2, and 3. Anyway, from the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. Lama Yeshe was the founder,
The battery might have died.
My battery, your battery.
No, you can take that off if you want and just
Oh,
project.
I can't tell if it's on or
I know.
not.
I think it's the back.
Yeah, I hate battery operated things for this reason. No, that's not really the reason. It's because what do you do with a battery? It's not a really good thing. Anyway, so I was reading. So now that you've had Medicine Buddha empowerment, those of you who have, so like Rebecca said, gives your prayers to Medicine Buddha more power. And then when you do it in a group, it has everybody's strengths. So it takes everybody's, it becomes this thing. We're interdependent. What?
No, I was just asking if you could hear. Move on
Oh.
and set up this other microphone. Everyone can hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Continue doing your thing and I'll bring it.
Anyway, so here's Medicine Buddha. So we, so according to Lama Yeshe in Tibetan Buddhism, these physical objects are talking to you beyond words. They're not using words to talk to you. The people who create this kind of religious artwork have pure minds when they do it. And so this is so Lama Yeshe said, so we might call that they have good vibrations. Lama Yeshe lived in the time of the hippies. So, and this energy communicates with us beyond words. So pictorial representations of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, realized lamas, yogis, and yoginis, this transmits informational energy to you, to your mind. It gives you wisdom vibrations. So, and when we place, when we do water balls, which we have not done today, when we make offerings on the altar, it's not about making offerings to a statue. It's offering to the mind of a Buddha. And it's about generosity. It's one of the ways we accumulate merit in order to become enlightened. So, and he says, it's very good that you keep images of enlightened beings in your room. Just looking at them can give you control and everlasting peace. They give you positive imprints in your mind. They impart knowledge and they give you teachings. They're like a full-time meditation. So, and one of the things is there, people who paint these tankas, they have very, very specific rules about them because these are representations of visions that realized beings have had with these beings, like Tara's behind me, but Tsongkhapa had Manjushri teach him. So Manjushri's hiding behind Maitreya back there with the sword cutting through your delusions. So Lama Tsongkhapa, who's our main teacher, I still have that. Yes, my shots have worn off.
This behind this stupa.
Always open-handed. Not point, open-handed.
Yes.
Just so anyway. So there's so there's reasons why they look a certain way, and the Tibetans are particularly keen to follow those representations. So anyway, so it's interesting if you ever have an opportunity to take a tanka class, like drop green tar or something, they all come out gorgeous following the instructions, and it's everything. Everybody I know says it's a very cool thing. It's really lovely. So sometimes they have classes like that at Vajrapani or these retreat centers and stuff. So so these images are meant to inspire us. And so generally speaking, when I first walked into a Tibetan center, it was like, you've got to be kidding me. It's like, okay, well, I'll just set that aside. Not go there. Because it just had no meaning to me, had no anything, no impact. Some people will see a particular drawing and just, it's like, whoa, they have some physical response to that image, which generally indicates that they have past life experience of doing a practice with this deity, something like that, And one of the things, if you've taken your bodhisattva vows, or you're taking the aspiring bodhisattva vows, not vows, if you have aspiring bodhicitta, then one of the things is that you always treat images respectfully, and you make offerings to the altar, that kind of thing, to the Buddha's wisdom mind. And of course, one of the imprints it leaves is that you might be attracted to those in the future lives. So you'll discover this teachings again, because you'll see the book on the shelf that has a Tara image on it. Pull it off the shelf at the store, or it's just, so we don't want to ever disparage, even if we don't like the artwork. Like if someone's artistry who made it is not so skillful, we still remember that the thing it's representing is perfect. So all of these things are mind trainings. It's not rules for no reason. They're mind trainings. We're disciplining our mind. So it's wonderful if you see an image of a Buddha or another being, holy being, to have it in your home, so that you create more and more of a bond with it, so that it's always appealing to you. So like green Tara. So and the Tibetans have a real link with white Tara. It's also up here. Anyway. So when I went to Land of Medicine Buddha, I just ordained. So Land of Medicine Buddha is an FPMT center in California. And they have 7 Medicine Buddha statues, big statues. And next to them, they have all the promises the Medicine Buddhas make. And that just had a really strong effect on me. I just thought, wow, I mean, it's so lovely and everybody's covered. Like, if you're worried about being left out, that's not going to happen with the Medicine Buddha Buddhas. So, so you just don't, you don't know what's going to have an effect on your mind until you try these things, because you don't know your past. You don't know what you may have made a connection to in the past. And so it's kind of cool to discover some. Now, if you're like me, some people are very energetically in tune with the world. They feel the energy of places. About the only energy I feel is in the presence of the Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But I'm not one of those people. I'm like a brick wall or something, so I'm not one of those people who can say, oh, I went to this place, this holy place, and blah blah blah. Not yet. That's just not that's not where I am yet. So, but a lot of people do, and so it's really special if you do. It's enviable when I see you. But anyway, so when you read like the Medicine Buddha Puja, it's all about the Bodhisattva attitude of just wanting to help suffering sentient beings in whatever way they're suffering. And it doesn't matter if they are involved in their suffering, because we're all involved in our suffering. It is because of our ignorant minds that we keep chasing suffering. So whether you're, a soldier, or a doctor, it's all the same to the Buddhas. They want to help you get, free you from your suffering mind, and in whatever ways you suffer. Yes.
How can we apply that to the situation that is happening right now with Israel and Palestine?
In Ukraine and Russia, and,
In particular,
why in particular?
because I see them as brothers. They come from the same.
And the Buddha would say, we are all that way. We are all family.
Yeah.
If the Buddhist teachings are correct about the consciousness never ceases, since forever, I mean, it's not just, not for 3,000 years, forever, we have been the child of every single sentient being, every mosquito, every gnat, no-see-um, every human, we have been their child. We have been their mother countless times. We are one gigantic family. So we want to care about all of them. How do you explain that? How would you explain that? Not using details from the Palestinians or the Israelis. How can you explain how this kind of thing can happen? Yes.
I mean, a life is a life. Without this,
But how can a conflict like this happen?
it's us and them versus we.
So that's the first thing. It's this habit we have of me and you. You know, as soon as we have this impression of other, it becomes them. And if we practice that habit, so when we group people in our minds, they're the problem. You know, what happened, the end result of this is a conflict like they're having. And that's relentless. You know, my whole lifetime, this has been a challenge. So it's you know, this is the result of our minds.
This is something that we need to strive to overcome
Yeah, in our own minds.
in our own mind.
Not just, you know, it's like that is the one thing that you absolutely can do during times like this is work on your own mind. Recognize every moment of anger ends up there. That's where it goes. If we don't check our minds and react to our anger, it leads to hatred. I mean, it goes through all sorts of stages, resentment, you know, it just keeps building up. And eventually it can lead to hatred. If you don't want to be in that kind of conflict, you need to stop with anger. You need, as soon as you're impatient, you want to relax, remind yourself of why impatience leads to suffering, you know, and not consider yourself not them. Oh, I couldn't be, you know, I'll never become like that. Well, if your mind continues life after life and you don't check that mind of anger, of course it can become like that. Who are we kidding? You know, we need to take responsibility for that. You know, they're just representing karma and conditions ripening in such a time that their thing is ripening right now, but it's not separate from us. We live in a world that has conflicts all the time because we created the cause for that. You know,
Like Cain and Abel.
I don't know, because I didn't study that particular religion.
It goes back to the beginning.
There
That
is
part of us.
well, it's not part of
and
us.
that we are
It's our ignorance. It's our ignorance of how things actually exist because we keep persisting at this idea of self and other when we're all selves. One family of selves. We're one family, that's really could be taken so many different ways. We're one family of eyes, you know? It's this idea that we think that just because I'm in this body over here and you're in this body over there, that somehow we're different. You know, and it's not true. You know, it's a lie we tell ourselves. Yeah.
When Venerable Robina was here, she shared a story, I'm sure you're aware of it, of when the conflict arose between China and Tibet.
Yeah.
And the young nuns, Tibetan nuns, were captured, they were tortured and raped by the Chinese. And when they were asked about it, and these young nuns were more concerned about the ones that were doing the harm to them. They were praying for them because they knew what was going to happen to karmic.
Because what understanding is that about karma? If you're able to really be more worried about the person doing the harm than the person receiving the harm, what is your understanding of karma in those situations? Do you have an understanding of karma?
Cause and effect.
Of cause and effect. So what is it saying? Why would you be more worried about the harm doer?
they're gonna end up suffering.
They're going to end up suffering. The beginning of their suffering is started. You're ending something. The person who's receiving the harm is exhausting some negative action because we can't experience anything we didn't create the cause for. So everybody's involved. But the harm doer is beginning, whatever, times in the hell realms. So it's, that's how you train your mind, is to remember, how bad it's going to be for them. So it's and then you can be in that same place. Yeah.
For me, I understand it, and it's helpful to have this larger karma framework, but it doesn't help. So you know what I mean?
You have to work on your compassion then.
No, I know. So that's where I go to. It's like the compassion for everyone who's suffering, because if I think to myself with my afflicted mind, oh well, they're really gonna feel it, the effects of it just
But you have
separates me further from
yeah.
them.
Well, and I think you have to be really very precise. It's really about first of all, when you develop compassion, the kind of ways you start with, of course I start this at 20 after the hour, is looking at your own suffering and then recognizing that your suffering is no different than everybody else's suffering, so that when you try to generate compassion for someone doing harm, like those tough situations for you, like when someone's kicking the dog, somebody's, beating a child, someone, and you're so concerned. And of course you should be trying to get the child or the dog out of that situation. But we have a tendency to go towards hating the person who's doing the harm, right? We need to really develop our minds to the point where we understand that we could be that person easily, that we have a mind of anger, that we get impatient, that the conditions are just not there. We live in a country where people take care of their pets, so it's less likely to see it. You go to another country where there's no such thing as pets, then, they treat animals quite differently, so it's, that we don't have the conditions as strong in this country to be a pet kicker, that's saving us from that action in this life. Doesn't mean we haven't created the cause for it. It just, we don't have the conditions for it in this life. You see what I mean? That's critical. We have that us and them thing. We really have this belief that's not me. And that's not true. We've created we've been living since beginningless time, and we're not enlightened. We've done a lot of stuff wrong. Yeah.
I think we're also part of we should try to develop the awareness that we're part of the collective consciousness at this time.
And Buddhism doesn't really talk about a collective consciousness. We do talk about shared karma. Yeah, we like the fact that there are wars in our world, the fact that you cannot live on this planet without killing things, you can't take a shower without killing things, is our karma. We created the cause for that, and things like having wars and we created the cause to be part of that kind of world, So it's like we're not exempt. So the first stage before you can go straight to the karma thing, in fact, it's very important because we can develop this attitude, it's just their karma. They'll get theirs. That's not a good use of the knowledge about karma because that's not worrying about them. That's sort of like they're getting what they deserve. All our suffering. We can treat all of our suffering that way. I'm just getting what I deserve. That didn't have any meaning. If we want to end suffering, we need to learn how. And the way out of that is to have compassion, not to have, oh, good, I'm glad they're going to get what they deserve. It's not a scale. There's not someone up there judging us, it's just cause and effect. And we have a tendency to think that because we're not in that condition at the moment, that we never would be. And that's just not true. So it's just, so we really want to work on how you want to have compassion, of course, for both the person receiving the harm and the person doing the harm. And doing the harm takes longer. You kind of You know, you work gradually. First, you try to develop compassion for yourself. You really recognize your own true suffering. Then you try to increase your compassion for your loved ones, you know, because it's easier, right? And then strangers. You save enemies for last. And enemies include those people that you hate on sight, those people that you see as evil, you know, even though they're not doing anything to you. But it's just that, you know, because that's the hardest group to develop compassion for.
There was a teacher by the name of Ram Dass,
Mhm.
and whenever you would encounter something like that, he would say to yourself, "I too am that,"
Mhm.
and I use that.
Yeah. And also saying things like, that's the result of ignorance. It's not some result because they're deranged. It is a result of ignorance. And I have that too. You know, every moment of anger is a result of ignorance. Every moment of greed is the result of ignorance. You know, we all have that. But the more we can check our minds while it's controllable, the less likely we'll end up in circumstances where it's out of our control. You know, like in, you know, many countries, if the nation goes to war, they just come and get you. All right, now you're a soldier. Monks have a rule in our Vinaya that you can, you know, give back your robes because you've been recruited into the army, and you're going to have to kill. You know, that's in the Vinaya because that's the reality at the time of the Buddha. And we created the cause for that. Drat.
There was on the news the other day, a gentleman who was showing that compassion to somebody down in Mount. The mass shooting in Maine, the father was on the news the following day, and they said, aren't you angry at that gentleman killed your son? Said, no, yeah, that was taught not to be like that. He went on to say something, paraphrase, something about, I bet that person who killed my son had some normal, good moments with him.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
It's really the tragedy, isn't it? You know, but that's really working on your mind, that you're able to see someone, you know, who's killed your loved one with compassion. And I tell you, I mean, one of the students in Raleigh, you know, his son was killed in a bar fight, and his first response was exactly like that. No, I mean, I can see how this could happen with this kid, my son, and all this kind of stuff. But he used to be a very angry person, and through the practice, you know, of practicing compassion, he changed. You know, and so by the time this happened, he could handle it. You know, so it doesn't mean he didn't have grief or loss. It just means that he didn't hate the person who killed his son. You know, and that's a practice. It's not magic. It's developing your mind. You know, he was taught not to think that way, learning that there's no advantage to thinking that way. It just causes more suffering. So we'll talk more about how we do this gradual, you know, like, you know, expansion of compassion, as well as what are considered Bodhisattva deeds, you know. So we know what we're working towards. And, you know, we just have to always keep in mind that we are just trying, and that trying matters, you know. So it's not about being a Buddha. It's about becoming one, you know. So it's, you know, it's not going to happen today. Maybe, yeah. If the karma ripens, who knows? But you know, it's so interesting as you see people who like seem to rise to an occasion under a crisis or something. That's still practice. There's been some training that they put their mind through, that then suddenly these conditions are there, and bam, you know, that's what arises for them. You know, so how cool is that? Anyway, all right. I have heartburn. I've never had heartburn in my life until the last couple of months.
Something you ate in India?
No, I think it was the fear of going to India kicked it all off.
Yeah.
And like I've just been holding it here. So, but I have much more compassion for people who have heartburn now. So, because I had no idea why they called it heartburn. Oh, I have an idea now. So, all right. Yeah. Announcements, anything?
Yes, I have a few announcements. First of all, thank you. If you haven't been here before, thank you for coming. Please come back. Also, just wanted to let you know that for the rest of the month, so today's the 5th, Venerable Tendrum will continue on the Bodhisattva series on the 12th and the 19th. We will be closed the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. We will resume on December the 3rd, 10th, and 17th. We will be closed on the 24th and the 31st of December. And
Will these dates be on the website?
yes, yeah. So that's the next thing. Since the transition, I still don't have access to the calendar, and we just have one person who has been doing the calendar. So the calendar is going to be updated soon and more regularly, karma willing. And also we are going to have Venerable Tendrum was talking about the iconography and about altars. In January, we're going to have a little class on water bowl offerings, setting up an altar, and we'll touch on some of that. And we need to have a deep cleaning day of the center. So if you are interested in helping out, we can either do it over like a Wednesday evening and a Saturday, or we can just blow it all out on a Saturday. But we really need some people with muscles. We need to take the altars apart and clean them. And so if that's something that you would like to help out with, please catch me or Anthony. I don't know if you're leaving right afterwards, and I'll put your name on a list, because we do need help with that. And anyone who right now, so the water bowls, Venerable Tendrum mentioned, they're not done. Jack is not here today. He normally does the water bowls, but it would be lovely after the water bowl course. It's a beautiful practice, and it's not like a duty or a chore to do them. It's really something nice, a way to settle your mind before the teaching. So after the course, it'd be great if we had a list of people and we could rotate. So sorry, that was kind of long.
And we can keep going.
Yeah, but I won't.
So we do need some people who have some strength to help with cleaning, because some of these things are heavy, and lots of us are old. But
I didn't say that.
Yeah, well, I'll say it, So, and it doesn't matter if you're old or not, because my stepmom had to pick things up that, because of my shoulder, I couldn't do. Just, I know how she feels when someone just takes it away from her to do. Anyway, all right. So we want to dedicate. So remember the reason why you came, and anything that any kind of moment of understanding that you had, any kind of good thought you had, all of that creates merit. And merit just means something that will ripen as happiness in the future, as something good, and so we want to make sure we're not greedy with that, and we want to dedicate it to the benefit of others. So we're reading the Shantideva's prayer. It's if you prefer looking in the book, it's 244 or 6. So keep in mind, rejoice in your positive efforts. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. Make it find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to tell the mysteries of the world. And then the long life prayer for His Holiness. And
What page is that?
244. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. All right. Well, thank you very much. It's great to see you all.
Welcome back. Glad you're back.
Thank you,
All
Venerable
right.
Tendrin. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you.